Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel and a very good day to all of you. Today, let's analyze the current trends in literature. The first term is climate fiction or cli-fi. Climate fiction tackles climate change as its central theme, imagining future catastrophes or human adaptation. It raises ethical questions about a survival, justice, and a responsibility. Kim Stanley Robinson's work, The Ministry for the Future, is a recent landmark depicting near-future geoengineering and a global crisis. Other examples include Margaret Atwood's work, Mad Adam Trilogy, and a Jasmine Watt's work, Salvage the Bonds. The next trend is speculative realism. Speculative realism mod combines realistic settings with a subtle speculative or fantastical elements to unsettle readers. It makes magic or strangeness feel normal while exploring deep social and psychological questions. Helen IAM's White is for Witching includes uncanny hauntings in a realistic frame. Mariana Enrique's work, Things We Lost in the Fire, uses horror to critique Argentine society. The next trend is queer and trans narrative. Literature now centers queer and trans experiences with a greater nuance and a variety. These stories go beyond a coming out tropes to explore joy, desire, and a community. Tori Peters' work, Detransition Baby, examines gender, parenthood, and relationships among trans characters. Akweke's Emizi's work, Freshwater, portrays a non-binary protagonist shaped by Igbo spirituality. The next trend is disability representation. More authors are portraying disability and neurodiversity with depth and authenticity. These stories challenge stereotypes and critique ableist societies. Riva Lovere's work, Golem Girl, is a memoir and art book that reclaims disabled identity. Kizzy Lehman's work, Heavy, explores trauma and the body with raw honesty. The next trend is migration and diaspora stories. Stories of migration and diaspora explore belonging, cultural hybridity, and dislocation. They humanize political debates and illuminate personal struggles. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's work, Americana, follows a Nigerian woman navigating race in the US. Mohsin Hamid's work, Exit West, blends realism and magical dots to capture refugee flight. The next trend is rewriting canonical texts. Authors retell classics to highlight erased or marginalized perspectives. This trend critiques colonialism, patriarchy, and other power structures. Jane Roy's work, White Surrogacy, gives voice to the mad woman in a Jane Eyre. Madeline Miller's work, Circe, reimagines Homeric myth from a woman's point of view. The next trend is autofiction. Autofiction merges memoir and fiction, letting authors write about their lives while reshaping truth creatively. It offers raw, confessional storytelling that feels both intimate and artful. For instance, Rachel Cusk's work, Outline Trilogy, turns her own voice into a distanced, observing narrator. Karl Ove Knausgaard's work, My Struggle series also famously blurs fact and fiction to dissect a everyday experience. The next trend is fragmented non-linear storytelling. Non-linear fractured narratives mimic a memory, trauma, or consciousness. This structure allows authors to explore complexity without a tidy resolutions. Jennifer Egan's work, A Visit from the Goon Squad, shifts between characters and times, creating a mosaic of lives. Toni Morrison's work, Beloved, famously uses fragmented chronology to mirror the trauma of slavery. The next trend is hybrid genres. Hybrid works combine fiction, memoir, poetry, and a theory, resisting easy classification. They suit topics that demand a layered or personal approaches. Maggie Nelson's work, The Argonauts, mixes memoir with a queer theory, philosophy, and a lyricism. Claudia Rankine's work, Citizen, an American Lyric, blends poetry, essay, and a visual art to discuss racism. The next trend is digital or internet aesthetics. Writers incorporate text, chats, forums, or social media feeds to reflect our digital lives. These forms highlight the intimacy, absurdity, or fragmentation of online communication. Patricia Lockwood's work, No One Is Talking About This, immerses readers in meme culture and internet syntax. Lauren Euler's work, Fake Accounts, satirizes online performativity. The next trend is diverse voices and own voices. Publishing increasingly prioritizes marginalized authors telling their own stories. This trend combats erasure and enriches literature with an authentic perspective. Angie Thomas's work, The Hate You Give, centers Black American youth confronting police violence. Ocean Young's work, On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, offers an immigrant and a queer Vietnamese American perspective. The next trend is Afrofuturism and a black speculative fiction. Afrofuturist works reimagine black histories and futures with a science fiction, fantasy, and myth. They resist colonial narratives and envision liberation. N.K. Jemisin's work, Broken Earth Trilogy, is acclaimed for its world building and a political allegory. Nnedi Okorafor's work, Lagoon and Who Fears Death, fuse African traditions with speculative elements. The next trend is historical fiction with contemporary parallels. Historical novels draw connections to today's crisis, offering insight into ongoing struggles. Writers use the past to critique racism, nationalism, or injustice. Colson's Wirehead's work, The Underground Railroad, reimagines a literal railroad to confront America's slavery legacy. Hilary Mantel's book, Wolf Hall, examines power and ethics in Tudor England with modern resonance. The next trend is the rise of graphic novels and comics. Graphic storytelling has become a respected literary form addressing serious themes. Words and art combine to deliver layered emotional narratives. Alison Bechdel's book, Fun Home, explores queer identity and family secrets. Art Spiegelman's book, Mouse, uses animal allegory to depict the Holocaust. The next trend is YA crossovers or young adult crossovers. YA fiction now draws adult readers with mature themes and complex characters. These books handle identity, trauma, and social justice accessibility. Angie Thomas' work, The Hate You Give, resonates across age groups with its urgent social commentary. Leigh Bardugo's work, Six of Crows series, offers morally complex fantasy heists. The next trend is micro and flash fiction. Writers craft extremely short stories that pack emotional or thematic punch. This form suits online reading habits and creative constraints. Lydia Davis is renowned for philosophical, minimalist micro-stories. Online venues like Wiglaf or Flash Fiction Online showcase the form's diversity. The next trend is serialized web fiction. Authors publish stories in installments online, building loyal audiences outside traditional publishing. Readers engage interactively, influencing plots or popularity. Platforms like Wattpad have launched authors such as Anna Todd for her After series. Webtoons and lit RPG serials are especially popular in fantasy and romance. The next trend is experimental forms. Authors play with typography, structure, and mixed media to challenge reading conventions. These works often reflect psychological states or philosophical questions. Marx said Daniel Whiskey's work, House of Leaves, features layered, footnoted, and labyrinthine text. Anne Cousins' work, Knox, is a hybrid elegy with collaged visuals and translations. The next trend is interdisciplinary collaboration. Writers team with visual artists, musicians, or photographers for rich multimedia experiences. Books may include art, reproductions, scores, or digital extensions. Claudia Rankine's work, Citizen, incorporates images to deepen its critique of racism. Sophie Call's work, Address Book, blends text and photography to investigate identity. The next trend is trauma narrative. Literature increasingly engages with trauma in personal and collective forms. Fragmented, non-linear storytelling mirrors psychological damage and memory. Roxana Gay's work, Hunger, explores sexual violence and body image. Celeste Ng's work, Everything I Never Told You, uncovers family secrets and grief. The next trend is dystopian and post-apocalyptic fiction. Authors envision societal collapse to critique contemporary fears like authoritarianism or climate change. These stories interrogate survival, ethics, and human resilience. Margaret Atwood's book, The Handmaid's Tale, remains a classic of feminist dystopia. Emily St. John Mantle's book, Station 11, blends pandemic collapse with art and memory. The next trend is hop punk or solar punk. These subgenres counter grim dark pessimism with visions of resistance, community, and sustainability. Hop punk emphasizes small-scale kindness and defiance. Becky Champer's work, Wayfarers series, exemplifies gentle, optimistic science fiction. Solar punk anthologies imagine green, cooperative futures balancing tech and nature. The next trend is the rise of translated literature. More world literature reaches Anglophone readers, enriching global dialogue. Publishers are investing in translations and highlighting translators. Elena Ferrand's work, Napolitan novels, gained a massive English readership through Anne Goldstein's translation. Han Kang's work, The Vegetarian, translated by Deborah Smith, won the Man Booker International Prize. The next trend is decolonial storytelling. Authors reclaim narratives silenced by colonialism, centering indigenous and formerly colonized voices. These works critique Eurocentrism and propose alternative epistemologies. Wabuk Bryce's work, Moon of the Crested Snow, imagines indigenous survival in a post-collapsed Canada. Alexis Wright's work, Carpentaria, blends Aboriginal storytelling traditions with a post-colonial critique. The next trend is metafictional self-awareness. Stories draw attention to their own artifice, inviting readers to question fiction's role. Narratives might break the fourth wall or reflect on storytelling itself. Italo Calvino's work, If on a Winter's Night a Traveller, famously addresses the reader directly. Jennifer Egan's work, Goon Score, uses PowerPoint slides to narrate a chapter. The next trend is audiobook boom. Audiobooks are booming thanks to celebrity narrators and an immersive production. Multicast recordings and soundscapes enhance storytelling. Neil Gaiman's work, The Sandman audio adaptation, features a star-studded cast. Publishers now design works with the audio-first audiences in mind. The next trend is dark academia. A moody trend featuring elite schools, moral ambiguity, and intellectual obsession. It critiques privilege while celebrating aesthetic traditions. Donna Tartt's work, The Secret History, helped define the genre with its murder plot and classical references. M.L. Rayu's work, If We Were Villains, continues the tradition with a Shakespearean flair. The next trend is book talk and a social media influence. TikTok's book talk community drives massive sales and viral trends. Readers share emotional reactions and recommendations, bypassing traditional marketing. Madeline Miller's work, The Song of Achilles, became a bestseller years after publication thanks to BookTok. Publishers now target these platforms to launch new titles. The next trend is mental health themes. Literature engages deeply with mental health, destigmatizing complex experiences. Authors write frankly about anxiety, depression, and recovery. Matt Haig's work, Reasons to Stay Alive, combines memoir and self-help for accessible insight. Sally Rooney's work, Normal People, portrays depression and communication struggles with empathy. The next trend is AI and technology in narrative. Writers explore AI, surveillance, and a digital consciousness with a nuance and a critique. These stories grapple with ethics, identity, and human-machine boundaries. Kazuo Ishigura's work, Clara and the Sun, tells of an artificial friend's hopes and limitations. Ted Chiang's work, Exhalation Stories often centers technological dilemmas with a philosophical depth.